Welcome to the debate.
Good to be here.
Tonight we're looking at Tuesday, January 20th, 2026. And on the surface, if you just glance at the scoreboard, it looks like a night of just pure joy for Real Madrid fans. It's a huge 6-1 victory over Monaco in the Champions League at the Bernabeu. It was a demolition.
It was a comprehensive beating, absolutely. But, as it so often is with this club, the self-proclaimed biggest club in the world, the scoreline is really just a cover. It's masking something much more complex and, frankly, a much more volatile reality that's been bubbling away.
And that tension, it really all centers on one man. The man of the hour, actually. The guy voted man of the match by UEFA, Vinicius Jr. The press, they called his performance stellar. And yet, when he got to the microphones after the match, he wasn't talking about the joy of the win. He was talking about pain. He was incredibly candid about being, annoyed and hurt by recent boos from his own fans.
I'm human too. That was the quote that really hit home.
And that is the absolute core of our discussion today. You've got this world-class athlete who is delivering at the highest possible level, and yet he finds himself having to, plead for a little empathy from a fan base that seems to think their season ticket buys them the right to dehumanize players. So my position is clear. The harsh treatment, specifically booing him in his own stadium, is just fundamentally counterproductive. It ignores the human element of performance, and frankly, it risks alienating a generational talent who has said out loud that he needs affection to play his best.
And I come at it from a different angle, I'm sorry, but I don't really buy the narrative that Vinicius is some kind of victim here. Look, when you play for Real Madrid, there's a unique, an implicit contract, and that contract demands absolute, unrelenting excellence, week in, week out. The fans' recent dissatisfaction, it isn't cruelty. It's a perfectly rational response to some very specific failures this season. And I'd argue that high-pressure environment is exactly what keeps the club at that elite level.
I see why you'd call it standards, but let's look at the actual evidence from Tuesday night. My argument is really grounded in what we saw on the pitch. Vinicius didn't just play well. As the local reports put it with that great Spanish phrase, he did beard, hair, and mustache.
Meaning he did everything.
This guy to touch the ball before Kerrer's own goal, and then he scores this stunning individual goal himself, the fifth one, a high shot that was just pure class.
He was very effective against Monaco, yeah. I won't deny that.
He was the catalyst for the entire thing. And yet, after this absolute masterclass, he has to stand there and defend his basic human emotions. He told TNT Sports, "I get upset by what people say." He specifically said, "I don't want to be booed at home where I feel comfortable. This is my whole point. The Bernabeu is supposed to be a fortress, a home. When you turn that home into a hostile place for your best creator, you're not upholding standards. You're dismantling the very support system he needs." Even Coach Arbeloa sees it. He said it explicitly. He needs people's affection. If the coach gets that the player runs on confidence, why can't the fans?
Okay, that's a compelling emotional argument. It is. But let me give you a different perspective, one that's based on the reality of the entire season. You can't just isolate the Monaco game from its context. Those boos didn't just, materialize out of thin air because fans were bored. They were built up over a season of pretty significant disappointment.
Disappointment? They just won 6-1 in the Champions League.
But look at the weeks just before that. We have to look at the domestic picture because that's where the day-to-day mood of the fan base is really formed. The sources are very clear on why things were so toxic. They had just lost the Spanish Super Cup final to Barcelona, to their arch rivals. That stings in a way a group stage win against Monaco doesn't immediately fix. And then, maybe even worse, they get knocked out of the Copa del Rey by Albacete.
A lower-tier team, sure, an upset, it happens.
At Real Madrid, it is not supposed to happen. Losing to Albacete isn't just a loss, it's a humiliation. And before that, there was a league game against Levante where the crowd really turned. Look, Vinicius himself admitted it. He said, "The last year hasn't been easy for me. I wasn't able to play the way I want to."
He's acknowledging a struggle. That's just honesty.
It's honest, yes, but honesty doesn't put trophies in the cabinet at Real Madrid. The fans, they act as a as a very rigorous quality control. They're not there to be a cheerleading squad that claps for effort. They're there to demand results. When you wear that white shirt, your past glories don't buy you indefinite patience. If the fans just accepted mediocrity or losing to Albacete with a polite smile, the club wouldn't be Real Madrid anymore. The boos are a signal. They're saying, wake up, this isn't good enough. And, well, judging by the 6-1 scoreline, I'd say the signal was received loud and clear.
I'm just not convinced by that, because it sounds like a beatings will continue until morale improves philosophy, which just doesn't work with modern sports psychology. Let's talk about this so-called slump versus actual success. You say mediocrity, but let's look at the numbers in the report. Vinicius has 7 goals and 10 assists in 30 games this season.
7 goals in 30 games for a starting forward at Real Madrid?
And 10 assists? He is the assist king. The source even says he became the club's top assist provider in the tournament's history. In the Monaco game alone, UEFA gave him credit for 3 assists if you include setting up the own goal. He is constantly creating offense. So to call a season where a player creates 17 goals in 30 appearances a slump that deserves booing, it just seems irrational. It feels like fans are reacting to a story, not the reality of his output.
See, I think you're being too generous with the raw stats there. You have to apply the filter of expectation. 7 goals in 30 matches is quite frankly an underwhelming return for a player of his caliber. We are talking about a guy who should be in the Ballon d'Or conversation. If he's scoring once every 4 or 5 games, that's a clear drop-off.
But look who he's playing with. He's setting up Mbappé.
Which is his job, right? But the fans are reacting to the quality of his play in the big moments. The stats against Monaco look great, sure. But where were those goals in the Super Cup final against Barcelona? Where was that dominance against Albacete? I'd argue that padding your stats in a 6-1 rout actually masks the difficulty he's had in those high-leverage moments. Vinicius himself gets it, he said. The change of coach, losing the final, playing for the biggest club in the world, the demands are very high. He knows the math. He knows 7 goals isn't the standard.
Okay, I agree he knows the standard, but does screaming at him about it actually help him reach it? And this gets to the psychology of it all. Vinicius said, "Sometimes we don't understand the boos. That confusion, that's dangerous. When a player is looking over his shoulder, wondering if his own crowd is about to turn on him, he's going to play with anxiety."
Or he's going to play with focus.
That's a very modern and I'd say very gentle interpretation of what elite competition is. I just see it differently. I would argue that the pressure, the very hostility that you're condemning, might have been the catalyst for this 6-1 win.
You think the boos made them win? I think the environment of absolute intolerance for failure forced a reaction. Vinicius said, every 2 or 3 days, we have the opportunity to prove ourselves. That is the mindset of a champion. If the Bernabeu was some safe space where losing to Albacete was met with, oh, it's okay, you tried your best, do you really think they would have come out with that kind of ferocity against Monaco?
I think they would have played with freedom instead of fear.
Fear is a powerful motivator. The fans have rights, and Vinicius himself acknowledged that. They have their rights, he said. He knows the ticket is a transaction. By creating an environment where complacency is impossible, the fans forced the players to dig deeper. The coaching change, the losses, it was a crisis. The fans amplified it, and the team responded by destroying Monaco. That's not a bug in the system. It's the main feature. Real Madrid is not designed to be comfortable. It's designed to win.
But at what cost? This is about the player's commitment versus this fan entitlement. Vinicius said it clearly. I want to stay here for a long time. He's showing loyalty even with this treatment. He's creating goals for teammates. He's unselfish. I mean, look at that pass to Mbappé. He's not playing for his own stats. He's playing for the team.
And the team is winning 6-1.
Yes, but I worry that the Real Madridistas risk pushing a generational talent away. If you treat him like a machine that has to function perfectly or be thrown out, eventually he might just decide that home isn't so comfortable after all. He said, I don't want to be booed at home. That's a warning shot. If the fans keep acting entitled to perfection while offering zero support through the low points, they might find themselves without him. And replacing a player with his contribution is not as easy as they think.
I think you underestimate the resilience of these athletes and the nature of that relationship. The fans know the size of the team better than anyone. Vinicius even said it himself. The press says what it wants. The fans understand that they have to criticize me.
He accepts it, but that doesn't make it right or effective.
It makes it professional. It's a professional relationship, not a sentimental one. The boos aren't because they want him to leave. If they wanted him gone, they'd be silent. They'd be indifferent. The boos are about demanding the version of Vinicius that wins championships. They know what he's capable of. When he says, "I'm human too," that's true, but the fans are saying, "You're a Real Madrid player first." The entitlement goes both ways. He's entitled to the massive wages and the glory, and they are entitled to the performance.
That's such a transactional view. It strips all the joy out of it. But fine, let's look at how this specific match ended. Vinicius finishes the night with a goal, 3 assists, and the Man of the Match trophy.
A pretty good haul.
And yet, the conversation is still focused on his pain. I think this proves my point that while Real Madrid is a tough place to play, Vinicius responds best to the confidence shown by his coach. Arbeloa's comments were protective, supportive. That chemistry is what fueled the performance. Acknowledging a player's humanity, letting him say, "I'm human too," isn't a weakness. It's a prerequisite for sustained success. You have to nurture the person, not just demand output from the machine.
And I'll maintain that the stellar performance was a direct, fiery answer to that very criticism. The tension between a player wanting comfort and a crowd demanding perfection is exactly what makes Real Madrid what it is. It's not for everybody. It burns hot. The boos and the cheers are two sides of the same passionate coin. If they didn't care, they wouldn't make a sound. Tuesday night, I think, proved that the system, however harsh, works. The fans demanded better, and Vinicius gave them his absolute best.
Well, we can definitely agree that his resilience is admirable. To give his all, to fight hard for this shirt, like Arbeloa said, even when he feels completely misunderstood by the crowd, that shows incredible character.
Absolutely. Whether he's at his technical best or not, he said it. I will always give my all for the team. And against Monaco, that all was spectacular.
Which leaves us with a fascinating question for everyone listening. Does that Man of the Match award vindicate Vinicius' complaint that the criticism is unfair? Or does the 6-1 scoreline vindicate the fans' high standards, which demand nothing less than perfection?
There is always more to explore in that relationship between the stands and the pitch.
Indeed. That's all for today. Thanks for listening to The Debate.